We are gathered here today to celebrate the ending of Love is Blind Season 4. Do you, miscellaneous, declare Season 4 a decent season of Love is Blind on Netflix? I do. I do. I look like the Virgin Mary. Do I not? Welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. Obviously, there's nothing in this cup. Well, we're finally at the end of the journey, and this has been a really exciting season of Love is Blind for me, and I'm ready to cover the finale of this whole thing. So today I'm going to be covering episodes 9 through 12 of season 4 and maybe the reunion. So let's get into it. Spoilers ahead for everything Love is Blind season 4. I'm kind of shocked we had 3 out of 4 couples say yes at the altar. That I think is unprecedented. It's the first time this has happened. As usual, we have a lot to cover, so let's jump right into the couples. Starting with Tiffany and Brett, our unproblematic golden couple. A lot of people in my comments mentioned that Tiffany and Brett are probably as unproblematic as they are because they are in their 30s. The maturity difference is very evident. I think after 30, you start to realize that maybe getting famous from being a reality TV villain is not the best idea. And Tiffany and Brett are definitely just now famous for being a wholesome, healthy couple. And I think Tiffany and Brett are the ones out of all seasons of Love is Blind that I've been most sure at the altar what's gonna happen. Even Lauren and Cameron season 1, I was like not sure if they were totally gonna say yes. Of course, it was a totally new experiment, so I was like, is anyone gonna say yes? But Lauren and Cameron are kind of more reserved in nature, and especially Lauren felt kind of unsure sometimes. Tiffany and Brett just, maybe they're a little more emotional, a little more sentimental, and maybe that's why I question them less. Alexa and Brennan last season, I questioned them as well. They seemed really solid, but I was like, they're kind of like a very odd couple. So Tiffany and Brett go down in the books as my most sure altar decision yet on Love is Blind. Rewinding back to the episodes leading up to the weddings, we saw Tiffany meet Brett's friends, and I really liked Brett's friends. They seemed really cool. He really seems to have a good brotherhood going where they're not afraid to talk about emotions with each other, and that continued through when they were getting prepped for the wedding on wedding day. And I appreciate Brett and his approach to friendship. He also has a good friendship with Marshall, and also something I really appreciated about Brett was that he always complimented Tiffany's drive or her ambition or her personality on top of her looks. Pretty much everyone we saw Brett and Tiffany talk to, Brett would rave about Tiffany and her personality and her heart and her drive at work and all of these things, where I'm like, it's such a nice balance of him appreciating her beauty but also appreciating what's on the inside. A highlight for Tiffany and Brett for me was at the wedding dress and suit try-ons. It felt like Tiffany and Brett were working together with the chisme, and Tiffany noticed Jacki wasn't at the wedding dresses, so she texted Brett, and Brett was able to tell Marshall, who is a close friend of his. And I just appreciated Tiffany and Brett tag teaming like that and looking out for a friend of theirs, as well as just trusting each other with the information. I don't know, I just feel like couples that spill the tea together stay together. There was one couple like this on Love is Blind Brazil that I appreciated. They were always down for the chisme, and that to me is always like a good sign. The only rough patch that Tiffany and Brett had was this moment where Tiffany broke down in tears. He woke her up from like a nap to start the conversation. I felt like, good job, Tiffany, very on brand. But Tiffany's just really stressed about the wedding planning. It had nothing to do with relationship issues. Brett was there to comfort her and hear her out, of course, because they're the perfect couple. But I did like them showing this moment of how stressful wedding planning actually is. We don't normally see a lot of that talked about on this show, and maybe it's because Netflix arranges a lot of the wedding stuff for them or helps them with that. But no matter what kind of wedding you have, I feel like it's a stressful thing. Stressful to deal with all your families and friends' personalities. Also, for most regular couples, weddings are a big financial stress too. So it's like a planning, logistics stress, but also like a financial stress. So it's important to remember that weddings are not all sunshine and rainbows, and they can be very overwhelming. Tiffany has a whole breakdown about it, and it's very understandable. So of course, to cheer her up, Brett takes her on a small plane ride as a big date, and then afterwards they have this romantic rose petal everywhere type of dinner where he printed all of these photos he took of her that were artsy and so sweet. That moment I was like, okay, Brett, they're saying yes. Like, they are such a beautiful and romantic couple. Brett better not betray us with any shenanigans after the show, but I am gaining more and more trust for him as these episodes and the wedding unfolded. If he breaks Tiffany's heart, he breaks all our hearts though. Also, another hint to me that they were gonna say yes at the altar was when Brett flew in his dad and brother from, where were they from? They were from like across the country, and the dad hadn't been on a plane since the 80s, and that just seemed like a more serious thing to happen, where I was like, okay, if the dad is able to make the flight and care about this, then I think Brett is really serious about this. And after speaking with Tiffany, Brett's dad approves of the relationship and the marriage. They're just so wholesome. Like, the brother is like, I just want to know if you like my hairstyle and if you approve of it. When we get to wedding day, it's kind of a relief because Tiffany and Brett happen right after Micah and Paul. I was like, oh, thank God. But yeah, I felt very confident. Also, the weddings this season, like, Seattle stays winning on these. They had mountain views, and yes, it was a little rainy, but it was just like a vibe. In Tiffany's room with the girls, everything is going smoothly. They have this moment where they talk about if Brett said no, and they all quote the, "We were rooting for you, we were all rooting for you." As if this couple couldn't get more perfect, they went ahead and quoted my favorite show ever. Like, come on. In Brett's room, however, they do hit a little obstacle. I really think it's that producers didn't have any drama to unravel with this couple, so they went ahead and sabotaged Brett's suit. I was like, this looks like producer shenanigans to me. They thought Tiffany and Brett were too perfect and they needed a problem to be solved and add a conflict. Brett has this fit issue and he goes to a tailor last minute right before the wedding. Shout out to, I don't know if her name was Lucia or like the shop was just named Lucia's tailor shop or something, but this lady, she was working so hard to get these pants to fit. She was holding this whole wedding together and she was adorable, and she pulled through and fixed the pants. See, Brett is just like a gold standard for how these men on Love is Blind and these shows should be, because I appreciate so much that he cared about the suit. And I mentioned this in one of my other videos, but I hate when like a heterosexual couple is planning a wedding and the woman cares about everything, every detail, and the man could not care less. And that was kind of Micah and Paul's situation. In Brett's case, he like cared about his suit. I mean, he's a shoe designer and a designer in general, so he particularly cares about his presentation of himself, but I just liked that he cared about his wedding because it's his wedding too, and if the bride had a fit issue with her dress, it would be a big deal. So if the groom has a fit issue, it should be a big deal too. And it was, and he fixed it, and it was awesome. So of course they both go and say yes, and that's that. They live happily ever after. I hope, please, no surprises at the reunion, I hope, with them. They seem solid, they're mature, they're in their 30s. I think we're in the clear with them. They might be my favorite couple ever in Love is Blind. I think I'm calling it. They're my favorite couple. They're the ones I was most sure about. I hope they happily capitalize off their beautiful relationship, or not if they don't want to. Next, let's move on to Micah and Paul, and this couple kind of took a back seat for episodes 9 through 12. They weren't featured as much and they did not have many like important moments that I noted. They were also our only couple that made it to the altar and then said no. For this couple, I just kept feeling like they had nothing in common. We see them talk about how Micah has so many clothes. He's shocked when Micah tells him what she has in their apartment is like 1/40th of her total closet. As much as I don't want to relate to Micah, I related in this case. Yeah, they have nothing in common. Like, they keep saying they look at life the same way. They both think life is ridiculous. Everyone thinks life is ridiculous because it is. Like, I never heard them say like tangible things they had in common, because I don't think tangible things existed. They do seem solid though, and they get along still. I'm telling you, they don't have like these ups and downs that other couples did, and I think that's why they weren't in the edit that much. They weren't that interesting. They just kind of got along well when they're together. When they're apart, they miss each other, and they're loving, sort of, but like at the same time they keep saying, oh, we'll decide at the altar. They're both kind of unsure, while other couples are kind of saying like, I'm sure, leading up to the weddings. And of course, they might as well have been a throuple with Shelby in the picture here, because she was kind of a main character in their relationship. It was so funny, at the wedding dress try-ons, Shelby was like sober and on her best behavior, and it's like, Paul's a nice guy. I don't know if Micah's gonna say yes, but he's a nice guy. And I was like, okay, so it was the alcohol talking a bit when she was so rude to him in the last episode. So I was like, okay, Shelby, maybe I'll forgive that drunk mistake. And then she unredeemed herself for me later. At the bachelorette parties, tipsy Shelby strikes again, and she reaffirms that she does not think this is it. And Micah's very tipsy too at this point. She keeps like sending voice notes or calling Paul, and she keeps calling him a crazy bitch, which I think it was just, again, there was this thread of Micah constantly like putting down Paul in many ways every time she interacted with him. And I know she was kidding around, but I just think it's kind of too early. They just met, basically, to be joking around like that and calling him a crazy bitch so much. When they're packing for the bachelor parties for the last night, every piece of clothing Paul puts in his suitcase, Micah's like, ew, ugly, putting down every piece of clothing he owns. Honestly, Paul's closet didn't seem that bad to me. He dresses very simple and like basic, but I didn't find him to be like offensively unstylish either. I think if he was like giving like Adam Sandler vibes in his wardrobe, I would be like, okay, Micah, you can make fun of it. But I don't know, I just thought Paul dressed pretty normal, and Micah just was always harping on him for something. And so Shelby says, I don't think this is it, and Micah stands up to her, and I appreciated that Micah did this. She says she just wants her friend's support. Shelby, in true Shelby fashion, says, I'll support you, but I'm gonna be pissed about it. What a great friend you are. Wow. At the very end of the bachelorette parties, Micah is talking to the camera. She finally starts like complimenting him and saying nice things about him, and I thought it was funny that like it took Micah getting wasted for her to give a damn compliment to this man. And then we get to wedding day, and oh boy. On Paul's side, he is very unsure. He keeps asking all of his family members like, what should I do? What should I do? And all of them say, whatever you think is right. It's your wedding. Paul is just so desperately wanting someone to just tell him what to do, and no one gives him a good answer. And so they go to the altar, and Micah gets the question first of, do you take this man, blah, blah, blah. And she ends up dodging the question and putting it on him to answer first. This moment was not a surprise at all, because it was pretty early on in like the trailers and the previews for the season. So I knew this was coming, and I had already seen theories on Reddit that like, oh, Micah's gonna make herself the victim if he says no first. That's exactly what she did. So she put it over to Paul. Paul says, I love you, but the rest is very predictable. He says no. She freaks out and cries and runs away. And at this point, the rainstorm is a paid actor, and the Oscar goes to Micah, whatever her last name is. I don't buy it one bit that she is actually sad or crying. I think she had a few weeks, 6 weeks, however long Love is Blind is, to think about a good strategy. She really cracked the code with dodging the question and flipping it on him. That was smart, good strategy. I'm sorry, I just didn't buy it. I feel like she went on the show to be famous. She's a very like influencer type. Honestly, she should have gone on The Bachelor. She reminds me of like the Bachelor girls a lot. Of course, Shelby had her 2 cents at the wedding. At first, when the suspense is happening, she's like, I wish I was drunker. And it's like, Shelby, we do not need that. And then when Micah runs away crying, Shelby is laughing. It reminded me of Irina, honestly. It was an Irina move. Again, it's not surprising because we saw Micah's true colors being bit of a mean girl, and her liking Irina in the pods. Birds of a feather birds of a feather flock together. So I was not surprised, but this was like mean girl behavior. Shelby's just like laughing while Micah runs away, and it's like, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. That's pretty messed up. Even if you know your friend is putting on the acting performance of her life, you should still at least pretend to be sad for her and sympathetic for her, to not look like an asshole on international television. So I kind of missed this in my first rewatch, but then I saw a conversation online about it. Paul saying that he doesn't see Micah as motherly or nurturing, and I agree, this is a very cold and rude comment, and especially for this couple, it just felt like it came out of nowhere because we only saw surface level conversations with them. So I don't remember them discussing having kids, or where Paul might have seen this unmotherly side to Micah, so much so to make it factor into his decision of saying no. So Micah cries and runs away. I'm just pretty sure she strategized this all to look good in her favor, and now she's gonna go on all the podcasts and try to defend why it wasn't strategy and she didn't victimize herself on purpose and all these things. She claims that she would have said yes if Paul said yes. She says that to camera. I'm not buying it. I don't buy anything with her. And I think it's pretty poetic. I think from a narrative standpoint, from a story standpoint, this was the best outcome because a lot of the audience is rooting against Micah. And I'm not trying to say that as like mean and nasty, like want her to suffer.
Clap if you think she should suffer.
I'm just kidding. I'm not saying she deserves something bad. I just mean like this narrative we've seen of her being a mean girl, flirting with Kwame, all these digs at Paul, having these mean girlfriends, makes her a bit of a villain of the season, even though it was a lot more subdued in the later half. And in general, people want to see villains get some sort of karma at the end and not get like the happiest of endings. So from just like a story, like if this was a fiction, this is like the poetic ending. And of course she's gonna continue to have her narratives outside the show, but as far as like the season contained goes, this is a very like satisfying ending. And yeah, we'll see how she defends herself on all the podcasts. I'm sure Paul will do well for himself. He should go back to dating the witchy girls he talked about, that he actually has things in common with. I am satisfied with this outcome. I think it makes sense for them. Let's move on to our next couple, Jacqueline and Marshall, who are kind of a special case because they did not make it to the wedding. Jackie and Marshall just really confused me this whole season because a lot of their important interactions happened off camera. Just in general, I just feel like Jackie didn't like and play along with the TV show aspect of the show, and that led to a lot of important moments and fights not being on camera. From what we saw, Marshall seems like a nice guy and a very like emotionally intelligent guy. It's actually why Jackie ended up not liking him very much. She seems to want like a macho guy, which is unfortunate because Marshall really did try to treat her well from what we saw. But then again, Jackie on social media alludes to like things that were off camera that Marshall did that were toxic. It's hard because Jackie's not a very reliable narrator, so it's hard to know what went down if it was off camera. They come home from the party and Marshall's like, just tell me what you need, which is a very healthy and direct way to improve your romantic relationship. Jackie just blows him off and is like, I'm too tired and I don't want to talk about it. And she gets mad that he won't let it go. She's just clearly not ready for this type of commitment or this type of TV show appearance. And I think my theory with Jackie is that maybe she was struggling to like support her family financially and thought the opportunity to be cast on this show could lead to her being an influencer and hopefully make more money to support her family. Like maybe that's what she was trying to get out of it. And so then we see at the wedding dress try-on, Jackie is not there out of nowhere. And we see that Jackie is actually meeting up with Josh, obnoxious Josh from the pods that she had connected with. She's really into him. She tells the camera she found him attractive. I don't really believe that the Josh lunch and the wedding dress try-on were happening at the exact same time. I feel like they were trying to edit it that way. But regardless, it is rude she didn't show up to her wedding dress try-on and did not let Marshall know that. So she tells Josh that Marshall's too sensitive for her and that she made the wrong decision. She says she can't give Josh marriage, but she's down to try out a relationship. And then they kiss, and I was like, girl, what? That is cheating. Caught in 4K. Because she hadn't broken up with Marshall, and Marshall finds out at the suit try-on. It's sad because he was like really hyped up about it, and then sad after he figured out the news. He didn't even get a text from her to like break up with him or anything. And I found this to be very indirect and childish of her. From what we see, it feels like Jacki just went and kissed Josh and didn't show up to wedding dresses. And then they have their final confrontation where they finally actually break up. I found this point, Jacki finally, she bossed up and said everything she needed to say from the beginning. She tells Marshall that she found Josh attractive. She can't give Marshall what he wants. And Marshall asks for the ring back. And Jacki's like, no. Again, I feel like maybe she sees like a financial gain from that. If she didn't gain anything else, at least maybe she can sell that ring. I did hear from Reddit, who heard it from Deep D and Natalie's Love is Blind podcast, that Netflix does pay for the engagement rings and the women get to keep the ring. Side note, let me know if that podcast is good. I don't think I want to invest in listening to all of it because just Deep D and Natalie are not like my favorite contestants of Love is Blind. I really don't like season 2 in general, and nothing against them, they're nice. I just feel like they're also not the most entertaining of the contestants we've seen. Maybe if there's a particular episode or a fun fact you heard on that podcast, if you listen, let me know. But yeah, I saw that fun fact on Reddit that Netflix does pay for the rings. It's something I had always wondered. It makes sense why Marshall wanted it back or Jacki wanted to keep it, because either one of them could gain financially from like selling that ring. Oh my god, if they sold it, I'd be down to buy it just for my set. Just kidding, I can't afford that. After this breakup, Marshall is pretty upset about it, understandably, and he still keeps it classy. Honestly, to the end, Marshall did keep himself classy for what Jacki was putting him through. I can't say how he is off camera, but on camera, he is pretty like direct and has a generally healthy approach to conflict. This was the part where I was like, finally, Jacki had a breakthrough or something. I feel like she came to this conversation, the breakup conversation, freshly off going to therapy or something, because she says to camera like she's not sorry about what went down, but she's not sure if she's gonna be with Josh either, and she's not sure that she should be with anybody. She's crazy, and that she probably needs to do some self-work. And I was like, yes! Finally! Normalize saying this on Love is Blind. Thank you. This is the healthy conclusion. Like, maybe I need to do some self-work, and that's the next step. And so I appreciated that at least Jacki treated Marshall really badly, but she seems to have come around at the end, and hopefully she gets the help she needs to get herself ready for a relationship if that's what she wants to do. Moving on to a more successful couple. Chelsea and Kwame, who they were my most shocking outcome of the season by far, and I did not expect that to be the case. I feel like the whole time, episodes 9 through 12, Kwame was just like smiling through the pain. I saw this image on Reddit and I was like, exactly, like this is Kwame. First we see them shopping and Kwame is like visibly annoyed at her wanting to shop so much. And he says to camera that he's annoyed that like Chelsea's always very confrontational because they had an argument in the morning. He tells the camera he feels suffocated. And I just kept thinking like, how does she not see that he like hates her? And now all my notes make no sense because they ended up saying yes at the end. The edit of this scene where they were shopping and afterwards, they keep showing Chelsea like bossing him around. And I do think it was like kind of shady editing here because it was just like compiling anytime Chelsea told Kwame to do something. There could have been moments where Kwame was telling her to do something and they just cut that out. I'm just saying, like, it felt like the edit to me and it was just a vibe. They were eating like chocolate covered strawberries and he's like, I don't want any more. And she's like, eat another one, and force feeds him. And she's blissfully oblivious to him having any reservations. He keeps trying to bring up either that she's confrontational or that he's making a lot of sacrifices, that he has nobody in Seattle. She is empathetic and understanding to it, but also she's very like, we'll get through it, we're great, we're the perfect couple, whatever. And that's kind of her recurring answer to him bringing up his concerns. However, every time Chelsea and Kwame have conversations about their relationship, they always end the conversation reaffirming their relationship. In this shopping strawberries one, she was like, do you see yourself saying yes at the altar? And he was like, yeah, I do. I just thought he was lying every time. But he wasn't. So then they meet Chelsea's family, and this was kind of funny, of course. They were like walking up to Chelsea's family's house, and she's like, are you excited? And he's like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped.
In that totally monotone voice. I was like, there's no way in hell this man is saying yes. I think I'm still in shock a little bit. I just watched the episode this morning, so I'm still processing. He's also like, her family's just like a bunch of Chelseas, kind of like disgusted in his tone. He meets the family and they like him and all. They're talking out on the water, and this was the moment, of course, that was giving major Get Out vibes. And I know I'm not the only one, I think that's a popular opinion, but like, he was like the guy that ends up waking up with the flash and says, get out, get out. He says the title of the movie, an important character there. But yeah, Kwame, just like, his smile feels like so forced, and like, it was giving Get Out. It was. And then Chelsea's mom pulls him aside and asks him like, do you like Rocky? And Kwame's kind of like not expecting that question, and he's like, he's definitely like top 5 dogs. What kind of answer is that? Just say, yeah, I love him. You don't have to say, oh, top 5 dogs, because if someone is in their 20s, and just like the average person, like, how many dogs have you been close to enough for them to make your top 5 list? I feel like it's between 5 and 10. To me, just the top 5 answer felt very like, Rocky is number 5, and that's being generous. Because Kwame in the scenes with Rocky does not seem to be that obsessed. He is also saying like, oh, it's such a responsibility, now I'm in charge of Rocky, he's like a child. I was honestly surprised Chelsea's mom wasn't like, what the hell, why isn't he number 1? Honestly, the big moment from these episodes with Kwame and Chelsea, who kind of became main characters for this final stretch of the show, was their photo shoot. This is the moment that had everybody talking. It was this like intimate, sexy underwear photo shoot. I gotta commend them doing something different. Y'all know I always appreciate people doing something different in their weddings, but it was a little over the top. I did think it was pretty clear that it was a big ad for Calvin Klein. The brand name was front and center for these photos. I mean, they're both very fit people, so I understand why they want to show off their body so much, but it was just a little extra, and that was Chelsea's whole thing, that she's kind of extra. She's a little cringe at times. Don't hate me for saying it. It's a little true, but being cringe is not a moral failing. I recap Love is Blind videos on YouTube, so I am a very cringy person. I think the underwear shoot ended up looking fine. Honestly, I'm surprised we don't see more engagement photo shoots. The only other one I've seen is on Love is Blind Brazil. Engagement photo shoots are such a big part of wedding culture. I'm surprised we don't see everyone on Love is Blind doing this. Tiffany and Brett kind of had one with him taking photos of her with like the ring and stuff. But yeah, I feel like it's a very traditional and typical thing to do, that Chelsea and Kwame doing this shouldn't have been that crazy. But it was like, I think the underwear and sexy aspect that was like the crazy thing about this one. Kwame's also still grappling with his mother not approving of any of this. I think not even the TV show, because we never hear her, see her, nothing. And I thought he was setting it up like he just wanted a convenient out for the marriage with Chelsea. And I was like, I think he's just setting it up that if he says no, he has like a logical reason that involves his mother. Not that it's not a good reason, but it ended up not mattering. So I guess it's not a good reason to stop your wedding if your mom doesn't approve. At the bachelorette party, Chelsea is telling all the girls Kwame loves Rocky. And I was just like, delusion, convince yourself. On the other side, Kwame gets tipsy at his bachelor party and starts taking digs at Seattle for being very overpriced, so much so it becomes the name of the episode. But I thought that was really funny. He goes on a rant telling Seattle, you're Lamar Odom with Michael Jordan prices, and I was like, oh damn. Based on the outcome of this couple, I'm starting to think more and more that the edit was a little shady and trying to make it seem like Kwame was gonna say no, and maybe there was a lot of good that we didn't see. I'm hoping that's the case because anytime a couple says yes, I try my best to root for them. If I think they're not toxic to each other, at least. Their wedding is the first that we see, and it ends up being the cliffhanger right before the finale. I have to give an honorable mention to Kwame's sister, Barbara, who was just such a joy, such a light. I think she made up for the fact that Kwame's mom was not involved and said, like, you know, once you're married and mom meets her, she'll love her, don't worry about it. She was just so comforting about all of his insecurities and issues with his family. The best thing was she went to Chelsea's room and gifted her a clutch purse thing. And I was like, oh no. Like, I was so scared because I was so sure Kwame was gonna say no. And I was like, I'm so sad for Barbara because she tells Chelsea she really has always wanted a sister and is so excited to have another girl in the family, and she's just so welcoming. Later on, Barbara's the one who gives him away, and I know this is not how the meme works, but my mind in this moment went to, she is everything, he's just Ken. So then we get to the altar, and I was so scared because Kwame looked kind of sad at the altar, and Chelsea was walking up, and I was like, oh my god, no, she's like walking the plank to heartbreak, and I was like so ready for him to say no, and then he was like, I do. And I was like, oh, okay. This is shocking. They're not like a toxic couple. Maybe Kwame just has like sad eyes or hesitant eyes or something that we were seeing. I know other people were seeing it too. Or it was just this shady editing where they focused on their bad moments, or his bad moments to be exact. Hoping for the best for them. I always appreciated that Chelsea loved pink. I can't complain about that. She had the pink pumps under her dress, and the wedding was stylized with a lot of pink flowers, and I appreciated that. So this couple really kept me guessing. I'm not sure what happened, but now that they've said yes and they're together, I am rooting for them. I'm curious to see at the reunion if they feel more solid and chill or if they've had any issues. And finally, our last couple is Zack and Bliss, and they were the last wedding we saw. Them I was unsure about, but I was not shocked that they said yes. Rewinding back to the beginning, Zack and Bliss had some catching up to do. They met Zack's family and they approved, of course, of Bliss. I mean, Bliss is a perfect angel, of course. Why wouldn't they approve? But did anyone else clock that Zack's sister looked a little bit like Irina? You were thinking it, but I said it. Hopefully that's just an unfortunate coincidence, but I couldn't not say it. Once they start meeting Bliss's family, it became a little more rocky, I guess. I mean, they meet her mom's side of the family, and they're concerned because they learn that Bliss was a second choice, which I think Bliss was not intending to tell them, and then Zack says it, and she's like, oh, I guess we're telling them this? Uh-oh. Bliss's mom ends up being very empathetic to Zack's story and like basically offers to adopt him, and it's just so nice, and is like, I'll be your mom too, because Zack doesn't have his mom anymore. And it was just so sweet and wholesome. Like, this lady was too kind to this stranger she just met. To camera, she's just like, I don't mind this quick marriage thing, I just want grandkids, which typical mom. As far as wedding dresses go, I have to say Bliss's was my favorite. I think because it was a little different from traditional wedding dresses, and usually I don't care about the dresses. As you've noticed, this is like the first one I've commented on, but it was because it was different and it was so princessy and cottage. It was so cute. And so then they meet Bliss's dad, who is very judgy, a very judgy man. He asks them like, how long have you known each other? And they're like, 20 days now. And the dad is like, oh god. Which, okay, the dad was obnoxious, but he has a point. That's kind of a reasonable reaction to this very strange situation. And so Bliss and the dad start arguing about how like Bliss doesn't even know the guy, and Bliss is like, well, I don't want to end up divorced like you. And he's like, well, you're headed straight there because you're just jumping into this and you're just getting married for the sake of getting married. And I feel like that is the description of everybody on Love is Blind, because they literally go on the show with the goal of just like getting married as soon as possible, which is a goal people have, I guess. I did not like the dad's approach and how like judgmental and condescending he was to Bliss and Zack to an extent, but like it was mostly at Bliss. He wasn't like taking digs at Zack to his face. He delivered it rudely, but he might have been right about a few things. It's a very weird situation that I would be skeptical of the success. And I feel like leading up to the wedding, I did not think Zack and Bliss were totally gonna say yes, especially on her end. He kept saying like, I'm all in, I'm not even questioning it, I'm saying yes. I think they had a conversation about this in like the jacuzzi. She was like, you probably should question it to make sure it's like the right thing for you. And I was thinking like, oh, Bliss is searching for an out. She wants an out so bad. She's telling Zack like, it's okay to change your mind. I was like, oh, Bliss is out of this. She's out. But alas, they get to the wedding day and they get to the altar and they both say yes. Of course, he says yes first and he seems very nervous, and I was very nervous. I wasn't sure she was gonna say it, but she does. I was a little surprised that she said yes, but I wasn't shocked because I've been seeing Netflix put up polls after every batch of episodes releases. They say like, do you think Zack and Bliss are gonna say yes at the altar? In general, in the polls, they were always kind of 50-50. And that to me said, I think it's likely or possible they are going to say yes. Last season, that's what happened with Matt and Colleen. They kept being 50-50 on the polls and they said yes. So I was like, okay, if Zack and Bliss say yes, although there's a lot of people rooting for them, I feel like it's possible they will say yes. And then, oh my God, the song. They played the song. They got the rights to a real song, not a made up one that's just narrating whatever cheesy thing is happening. When it started playing, I was like, what is this country ass song? Why does it sound like a real song and not a Netflix song? And then the chorus came in and I was like, oh, it's the song that they had said they would play at their wedding, and it became like the outro song for the whole season. I feel like it was Netflix wedding gift to them that they bought the rights to that song to bring the whole thing full circle. So I know with this couple, the producers are like relishing. They are high-fiving, patting themselves on the back because they have wanted this to happen since season 1, I think. Have someone's second choice come back and then be successful. This is another first for the show, so I think the producers did a great job this season, to be honest. I'm saying that with full sincerity. And yeah, good for Zack and Bliss. I was more in the camp of wanting them to just date afterwards just because they did not get as much time as everybody else. And they did mention like, oh, he owes me a vacation now, a honeymoon. Probably at the reunion. We will hear if they have gone on vacation yet. Speaking of the reunion, I'm just realizing I'm gonna have to record alternate endings to this video depending on how the reunion goes. If you're seeing this, that means that I can condense all of my hot takes on the reunion in this video and just add it to the end. So let's cut to future me. Wow, I was so happy back then. I'm sorry in advance, but I'm kind of in a mood because stupid Netflix just had a disaster of a live streamed reunion. First of all, it started an hour and like 15 to 20 minutes late. At 7 o'clock Central, they said, oh, it's gonna be another 15 minutes, and then they gave no other updates. And then once the reunion actually got started, it only worked for some people and didn't work for others. I didn't see communications by Netflix after that. There probably is some now. Let me check actually. To everyone who stayed up late, woke up early, gave up their Sunday afternoon, we are incredibly sorry that the Love is Blind live reunion did not turn out as we had planned. We're filming it now and we'll have it on Netflix as soon as humanly possible. Again, thank you and sorry. So I don't know how some people were able to actually access the live stream. I ended up watching the entirety of the reunion on some random lady's TikTok live. Shout out to Heather Soros Rex on TikTok. It was just awful. Like, I appreciate her streaming it, but it was just her phone recording the television and cats walking by and her live commentary. So it was definitely not the ideal way to watch it, and I wasn't able to get any footage of the reunion for y'all for this video. So I think you can see how angry I am. I'm holding back a lot. I'm just shocked by the unprofessionalism of Netflix. Like, this is absolutely disastrous. Once it went past an hour late, I was like, oh, it's over. Netflix has apologized, but it really goes to show that Netflix is not ready for real television, not ready for live content, and they cannot compete with the other big networks. It's unfortunate because I really like season 4. This reunion situation was just such a horrible way to end an otherwise great season. Maybe if they want to try out live content, they should do it with lower stakes events, because I was on the Instagram live like waiting room and there was almost 200,000 people just on that live alone. There was thousands and thousands of comments on the live Reddit thread. This is just a really bad look for Netflix and I am very disappointed in them. And I hope some of y'all understand my frustration because y'all were maybe in the same boat. I never got access to the live stream. I tried my phone, I tried the computer. So moving on to actual reunion content, I'm just gonna go as quickly as possible, give my hot takes. So I came in the reunion when they were talking about Chelsea and Kwame and the Micah love triangle. Right away it's clear Chelsea and Kwame are still going strong, which was a question I had. Kwame was pretty mature during the reunion. He seems like he's grown and their marriage seems peaceful and good. Also, Chelsea did meet Kwame's mom and was welcomed by her. It was at Thanksgiving. So they're pretty resolved and Micah is a non-issue after the last conversations we saw with her. Next, they talk about Zack and Bliss, and Bliss is still tearing up about the I Hope You Dance montage, and they seem to be going really strong. They talk about how Bliss's dad, who was a hater of the whole situation, is now best friends with Zack, and they talk all the time. So good for them, rooting for them. Next, we get into a longer segment about Irina and Micah and the whole Mean Girls thing. We see the Mean Girls montage. Irina in the reunion was very remorseful, playing the part of like, I've grown so much and I didn't mean to be that nasty and all these things that I don't think any of us believe. She apologizes to the women. She doesn't say who, just the women in general. I just didn't believe it. Bliss also confronts Irina and tells her she hopes she grows from this and that she couldn't believe how mean she actually was to Zack when she watched the show back. Bliss kept it so close. Of course, Bliss is perfect. I will never stop saying it. And Zack actually calls out Irina and is like, you just went on the show to be famous, which Irina denies it, but it's obvious. Irina keeps saying she had a panic attack right after she met Zack and tried to go home, but the producers didn't let her. We don't get the producer side of this, so I don't really believe it. And she was also saying the part where she had a pillow over her head, like annoyed at Zack. She was actually having a panic attack in the pillow. I don't totally believe it, and I think Bliss puts it really well to her and says, your mental health issues are valid, Irina, but that doesn't excuse you being nasty and hurtful to other women and Zack and whoever else she has hurt. After that, Irina's like, oh yeah, like I don't want to blame my mental health, but my mental health. And we don't get much talk about Micah and Irina as a friendship duo. I imagine they're not actually friends and they were just friends in the pods. I didn't get the impression they were close now. Next, they talk about Micah and Paul's wedding day. They asked Paul about this little moment that went viral on social media where it looks like he might have tapped a bridesmaid's ass. It's not quite clear because someone walks by and you don't see the actual contact with his hand in her butt. I don't know. He says it's absurd and it's a non-issue. He was just like gesturing to squeeze by. I feel like if it was a thing, the bridesmaid would have told Micah. I don't know. It just seems like TikTok conspiracy land on this one. They do ask Micah if she would have said yes at the altar again, and Micah takes a moment. It looks like she's trying to get the tears flowing. Like she's trying to, like an actress, to say yes. She would have said yes at the altar, and she doesn't care what people think. So they do confront Paul about the comment he made that a lot of people are saying was very rude, that he didn't see Micah as having motherly potential or being a nurturing person. And Micah cries here a little more convincingly, like it does seem like a comment that would hurt because it was a really rude comment. The only time they discussed kids, Paul said like, what if we don't have kids? And she was shocked because she really wants kids. The comment came as a blindside to Micah because she was the one who wanted kids more out of the two. Paul, to defend himself, he backtracks and pivots to saying, oh, I wasn't inspiring motherliness out of her or a nurturing side of Micah. He also struggles seeing himself as a good father with Micah. So he tried to pivot it. I don't think it's one he's gonna get away with. Vanessa kept like pressing him. By the end of it, Micah is still confused and still blindsided and says they never talked about this before. And that was the thing with this couple. As I mentioned before, we just didn't see any serious conversations between them. That's why this comment felt so out of nowhere. They talk a little bit about Shelby and Micah defends her, says her delivery is not great. We saw the type of person Micah is, we saw the type of person Shelby is. It makes sense. Zack does chime in to defend Paul because Micah is attacking him so much and she's out for blood. I did think Micah was playing up the victim card at the reunion, aside from the motherly stuff, because that's an actual rude comment at her. And Zack says he had heard from the women that Micah never intended to marry Paul. I kind of believe it. I kind of believe she was there for exposure and not totally intended to get married at the end. Micah and Paul do confirm they talked a bit after the wedding, but that ended pretty quickly. So then they caught up with Marshall and Jacki and Josh and that love triangle, which is a mess. Also, Jacki and Josh were not in attendance and Vanessa had to have a Zoom chat with them the day before. They actually showed some footage of Josh in the pods, which they should have shown us from the beginning. Like, the producers knew that Jacki was gonna get with Josh later, so it's weird they didn't show Josh and Jacki in the pods much. Jacki confirms she is living with Josh and they've been together ever since. Oh, and she clears up that she broke up with Marshall before going on the lunch with Josh and kissing him. And I can't believe they confirmed my theory. I told y'all that edit was shady, that the Josh lunch was not happening at the same time as wedding dresses. Well, there it is. It was confirmed. Jacki is not a cheater, and I think that was an important distinction to clear up. She mentions this instance where Marshall called her a derogatory name off camera. That was the fight that led to Marshall leaving for 3 days. That was a big fight they had. She says that Marshall wanted the ring back to propose to another cast member. So then Marshall gets to respond. It's not a back and forth as much because they're not present, but Marshall gets to respond to a few things, mainly the derogatory comment thing. He ends up describing what it was, and the comment was transphobic in nature. Trigger warning for that. He said that both of them would take jabs at each other here and there, and that he went too far and said that her jawline was so strong, like, how do I know you were a man or something? Which is a problematic comment. It's transphobic, and at least Marshall owned up to it. He directly repeated what he said, and he explicitly says that it was wrong to say that. It could be just to keep up appearances, but at least he owned up to it and said it was wrong. And he does say he never used an actual derogatory term and that he wouldn't say like a slur. Normies are so weird with like insulting each other about saying you're a man or you're a woman. Like if someone called me a man, I'd be like, so what if I was? Like, who cares? And you know who taught me that? That bitch right there.
Why the hell am I gonna waste my time and give a press release about whether or not I have a penis? My fans don't care, neither do I.
Marshall does mention that he went on a date with Keisha, who was from the pods, and they texted for a bit, but then they broke up. So on to more positive notes. We shift focus again to the married couples. Brett and Tiffany show a cute clip of Brett waking Tiffany up from a nap, which is just her brand now. So cute. They show Chelsea and Kwame's apartment, and it is so fancy. It's like a panoramic view of Seattle. It's insane. When we see an update from Zack and Bliss, they make Zack sing a song he wrote for Bliss again. The producers are so shady for this, making Zack sing again. They do a little PSA about being kind on social media and how we should all be that. And I agree. I forgot to give my disclaimer this video that like we're just judging edited versions of these people. We really don't know these people. We don't know their character. And I encourage you to not send hate to anybody. Like, You have better things to do. Come on. We all do. And then to end the reunion, we get a Bartiz jump scare. Great. He asked the question, who's gonna have the first Love is Blind baby? And Vanessa was just so obnoxious about all this. She was obsessed. But all of the married couples are like, we're just getting to know each other first. Brett even calls them out for pressuring so much about the baby thing. Like, Vanessa was more annoying than my Mexican mom, and that's saying a lot. No pregnancies or Love is Blind babies yet. I think that'll be a monumental moment because it has still not happened. And then to finally end the reunion, finally a beacon of light, they gave a sneak peek of the next ultimatum season, which is a queer season. And I'm so excited to cover that. It's coming out on May 24th on Netflix. And hopefully they don't try a live reunion for that one. I'm so excited. Queer people are so underrepresented in dating reality TV. I'm tired of these normies that are so fucking boring and traditional. So I will be here recapping that season if you're interested. Thank you so much for being on this journey of season 4 with me. I really liked this season, excluding the reunion, and I would love to know your thoughts on this season in general in the comments below. How does it stack up against seasons 1 through 3? I would love to hear about it. If you want to stick around my channel, I like to cover all new Love is Blind seasons, some international ones, new ultimatum seasons, and other reality TV, rom-coms, teen shows, random internet stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, I welcome you to stick around. It's been so fun watching this season together with y'all. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed so far. It really helps me out. And you can also follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!